And no one, I mean no one, is paying to see Angel Reese attempt to play basketball. Hell, not even Mama Reese is paying to watch this lack of skill.
When Caitlin Clark suffered a left quad strain on May 25, 2025, the WNBA could not afford to ignore the picture painted by the numbers. The impact on the league's economy was immediate and devastating, and as Clark gets ready to miss at least 2 weeks of play, the stark contrast between her magnetic appeal and the rest of the league has become unavoidable, forcing players like Angel Reese and the struggling Chicago Sky to face an uncomfortable reality about star power in professional women's basketball.
You can't tell me that the Caitlin Clark effect isn't real. You knew when news broke yesterday that Caitlin Clark was going to be out for a few weeks, that ticket prices were going to go down, but I never expected them to go down 71% for the rivalry game.
The WNBA's carefully crafted economic momentum crashed like a house of cards as soon as word leaked out about Clark's injury. Ticket prices for the Indiana Fever games fell by an astounding 42% overnight, from an average of $1,370 to just $80. This wasn't a slow decline or a market correction. Rather, it was an instantaneous realization by fans in the marketplace that the product wasn't worth the same price without Clark.
Indiana Fever ticket prices to games over the next 2 weeks have dropped 42% since Caitlin Clark's injury announcement. An average ticket price of $137, all the way down to $80. People are selling their tickets, definitely can't get face value, so what do? They just continue to lower and lower and lower and lower and lower the price.
As word of Clark's absence spread, the Chicago team, which had rescheduled their June 7th game against the Fever from the 10,387-seat Winrust Arena to the massive 21,000-seat United Center especially to accommodate the expected Clark crowds, saw their ticket prices plummet. The get-in price for what was supposed to be a marquee showdown dropped from $86 to just $25. The financial consequences were harsh and quick for a team that had made a large investment in relocating to a bigger location.
Came to the United Center, the home of the Chicago Bulls and the largest arena in the NBA, expecting a marquee matchup between Clark and Sky Forward Angel Reese. Now here's where it gets sweet, all right? It gets real interesting right here. However, uncertainty looms as ticket prices for the game have plummeted dramatically following Clark's injury announcement. Oh my goodness. Since it became likely she will miss the June 7th game, ticket prices have dropped a staggering 71%. Oh my goodness. Following from an entry price of $86 to just $25 according to TickPick.
This economic collapse brings to light a basic reality that many WNBA players have been unwilling to acknowledge. The league's present success is not shared equally among its stars, while players like Angel Reese have received recognition and praise. The financial data shows a clear hierarchy of drawing power that puts Clark in a class all by herself. According to Fox Sports Analysis, games involving Clark and the Indiana Fever averaged 1.178 million viewers, which further highlights Clark's special place in the women's basketball landscape. Viewers during the regular season, almost double the average of just 394,000 for other WNBA games. This is a radical change in the appeal of sports television, not a small distinction or a slight advantage.
I told you earlier, these WNBA franchises that moved games like the Chicago Sky to the United Arena, you're screwed. You're done. You're cooked. Nobody is going to show up to this thing. Chicago Sky can't sell out their own 9,000-something seat arena like it is. They couldn't when they were kind of decent. They're a dumpster fire now. And now that Caitlin Clark is injured, the ticket prices for the Fever and Sky game just plummeted to Hades.
The May 17th, 2025 game between the Fever and Chicago Sky was a perfect example of this phenomenon. It attracted 2.7 million viewers, setting a record for the most watched NBA regular season game in 25 years. The broadcast peaked at 3.1 million viewers, proving that Clark's appeal could attract casual sports fans who wouldn't typically watch women's basketball. This one game attracted more viewers than some playoff series from previous seasons, highlighting the extent of Clark's influence on the sport. The television product of the league, the data, becomes even more startling when we look at the larger trend. Of the 24 WNBA broadcasts that attracted at least 1 million viewers in the 2024 season, 21 featured Caitlin Clark. This indicates that almost 90% of the league's most successful television events relied on the presence of a single player. The 3 games that drew more than 20,000 spectators all featured the Indiana Fever, further solidifying Clark's position as the league's main attraction.
We know that wherever she goes, she's selling out arenas. The ticket prices skyrocket. Like, even trying to get tickets to cover Hawkeye Arena when they played the Brazilian national team at her old school was just insane prices. If she's going on the road, wherever she's going, ticket sales jumped by 140%. Average is $312. Like, that's crazy.
While the WNBA as a whole struggles with Clark's absence, no team more perfectly captures the brutal realities of star power than the Chicago Sky, who are now ranked 0 for Angel Reese, who has been positioned as Clark's main rival since their college days, is facing the challenge of staying relevant for a team that has struggled to find its identity on the court. The Sky's current record represents a drastic fall from their expectations, and their inability to capture wins has coincided with diminished interest from both fans and media outlets. The contrast becomes even more apparent when looking at ticket prices for Sky games throughout their schedule. The Sky find themselves in the uncomfortable position of being winless as their supposed rival continues to make headlines, even from the injury report. Because of Clark's anticipated appearance, United Center games versus Indiana attract premium prices. Nevertheless, some matchups of the team's regular games at Winrest Arena are now as cheap as $170. In the absence of a marquee, this pricing structure represents the market's candid evaluation of drawing power and entertainment value.
The WNBA will be reliant on their other stars to maintain the interest of the mainstream. With Angel Reese being the only player with mainstream name recognition, most of the pressure, it is going to be on her to perform. And we have plenty of evidence that proves Angel Reese is not qualified to carry the league.
The Lead the Sky faces challenges that go beyond victories and defeats. Without the assured attention that comes from playing Clark, the Sky must rely entirely on their 0-4 start, which has coincided with a larger narrative about the team's direction and identity. Their on-court product's ability to spark interest and early return indicates that it isn't strong enough to sustain the high levels of attention the organization experienced during periods of intense competition. According to a thorough economic analysis, Caitlin Clark was in charge of an incredible 26.5% of all WNBA revenue during her debut season. Estimates for 2025 indicated that Clark might make almost $875 million. These figures are based on quantifiable increases in attendance, retail sales, broadcast income, and overall economic activity in the cities where the Fever Play takes place. They are neither theoretical nor speculative.
Caitlin Clark could be projected to be $1 billion revenue maker for the WNBA this year. Now, obviously, the WNBA won't see that money, won't see most of that money, and it's not just in the WNBA, but it's all of her sponsorships, it's all of her appearances, it's all that stuff. But according to the projections, we're looking at $875 million could easily eclipse $1 billion on her economic impact. Caitlin Clark entering the league last year was responsible for 26.5% of all of their economic activity. So revenue from merchandise, which again, with the CBA as it is currently, she doesn't see a dime of any of that. TV, and then ticket sales, obviously, which again, they don't get any.
When ticket prices drop by 42% within hours of an injury announcement, it shows that Clark's value isn't just academic, it's practical and quantifiable. The market's fast response to Clark's injury serves as a real-time validation of this study. Due in large part to the popularity of a single player, the WNBA has established an economic base that offers both unparalleled possibility and substantial risk. This billion-dollar effect goes beyond only game attendance. According to Fanatics statistics, Clark's presence has increased league-wide gear sales by more than 500%. Dick's Sports Goods saw Clark's popularity was a major factor in the 233% increase in WNBA sales from 2023 to 2024. These figures reflect underlying changes in consumer spending and behavior rather than the brief spikes that could be anticipated from a novelty impact.
People might be saying, oh, well, the teams aren't really going to suffer. They already sold the tickets. No. You don't understand. If the Chicago Sky moved into the United Center, and let's say resale-wise, they sold all 19,000, well, when only 9 to 10,000 show up, they're losing merchandise sales, they're losing food sales, they're losing beverage sales, they're losing big. They took a big gamble to get into that arena, and they're losing big because it's not going to be full, and those people aren't going to be buying things there.
The WNBA is being given a clear signal about the brittleness of its recent success by the current circumstances. The league's reliance on a single player has been made clear by Clark's injury in ways that should worry players, team owners, and executives alike. The WNBA's growth, while real and significant, is still concentrated rather than widely dispersed, as evidenced by the sudden decline in interest ticket prices and expected viewership. This concentration of star power isn't always an issue in. Although exceptional players have attracted disproportionate attention in many great sports leagues, the WNBA's current predicament is especially risky because Clark is still in the early stages of her professional career and has already suffered her first serious injury. The league's inability to sustain engagement levels in her absence indicates that efforts to cultivate and promote other stars have not yet progressed to the degree required to maintain the current momentum. The pattern set during Clark's time in college ought to have given league officials more red flags when Clark was disqualified from the 2024 WNBA playoffs. Attendance at the games that followed fell sharply despite the fact that those games had interesting plots and other talented players. Although acceptable, the 929,000 viewers for the Las Vegas Aces vs. New York Liberty's semifinal matchup was a significant drop from the 1.8 million viewers that witnessed Clark's playoff debut.
the ticket prices. This does not shock me at all. What did I say earlier? The WNBA was about to F around and find out, and these rival teams were going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, they're finding out. Kathy Engelbert, WNBA, you better start putting some respect on Fever fans' names, Caitlin Clark's name. Otherwise, this league, we got to remember, they lost $40 million still last year. All right? They're getting a new media rights deal. That thing won't be worth shit if Caitlin Clark was to either get really injured and couldn't play or decided to just say, I'm not going to play here anymore, I'm going overseas.
The whole WNBA ecosystem is impacted by Clark's absence. Television networks have centered their programming strategy around her popularity, and her injury necessitates a reevaluation of expectations and marketing initiatives. After making significant investments in WNBA items, merchandise partners now have to negotiate a market. Clark's injury presents both an opportunity and a challenge in a situation where other players in the league are temporarily unable to drive sales. On the one hand, her absence gives other stars the chance to draw attention and show off their own attraction power, but on the other hand, the sudden decline in general interest suggests that the casual fans Clark attracted to the sport might not stay interested without her. The situation also emphasizes the significance of player health and injury prevention in a league where individual stars carry such a significant economic weight. The WNBA's medical, when a single player's availability affects league-wide revenues and attention levels, staff training procedures and game management techniques all become significantly more crucial.
Jerseys, the number 22, the various styles, whether it's a t-shirt with 22, whether it's an Iowa jersey, whether it's a Fever jersey, a throwback, whatever. The amount of people in yellow 22 apparel is stunning. It is more than Peyton Manning ever had leading the Colts to a Super Bowl. It's more than Reggie, more than anybody I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it. Now she's not going to play, so I'm curious, are we going to have sellout crowds? Are the Pacers going to draw the attention nationally when they play the Sky or the Liberty or the Sun or whoever?
The WNBA must confront a number of important issues regarding its future as Clark prepares to return. The league's growth strategy must address whether it is viable to rely so heavily on individual star power or whether effort should be directed toward creating a wider, more distributed appeal across multiple players and teams. The current state of affairs also calls into question the balance of competition and the concentration of talent in Indiana. For Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, Fever's ability to select Clark and assemble a team around her has given them a huge competitive edge that goes well beyond basketball performance. Other franchises now need to think about how to cultivate their own stars and craft captivating stories that can draw in fans in an increasingly crowded entertainment market. Instead of depending on rivalry dynamics that need Clark's presence to have the biggest impact, they must figure out how to create interest and excitement regardless of their relationship to Clark. This means concentrating on winning games, building strong team chemistry, and crafting their own story.
Angel Reese and the WNBA have been using race to bring awareness to an incredibly bad product. Once you remove Caitlin Clark from the equation, there's no reason for people to watch this league, which is why people haven't been watching Angel Reese throughout her career.
The WNBA's recent growth, while impressive and real, is still fragile and concentrated. The league has successfully increased revenue streams, drawn in new fans, and raised its profile, but these gains are disproportionately tied to the presence and performance of a single player. This fact does not diminish the accomplishments of other players or imply that the WNBA lacks talent or entertainment value, but it does highlight Clark's unique position in the sport's current landscape and the obligation this places on both Clark and the league to protect and maximize this asset.
Without the NBA giving their yearly donation, this league would have folded years ago. And that's the part that bothers me about the organization, the owners, the players. This inflated ego, thinking, oh, we built this. You didn't build nothing. You're just getting by the NBA charity check. And with this mentality, They have these inflated egos, and they're stuck in their ways. They think their way is the right way. This is going to be successful, and failed for decades. Finally, a player that's worth paying the money for, Caitlin Clark, comes along. What do, WNBA? You beat her up. You treat her like crap. You treat her like she's dog doo-doo, dude.
As the league navigates this difficult time, one thing is certain. Caitlin Clark's influence on women's professional basketball goes far beyond statistics and accolades. She has become the economic engine that powers much of the league's growth. If viewership and attendance remain strong during Clark's absence, it will suggest that the league has successfully converted casual interest into broader basketball fandom. If numbers decline significantly, it will confirm that the WNBA's growth remains heavily dependent on its brightest star. Her brief absence and the WNBA's recent success serve as a sobering reminder of the chances and risks this poses for the league's future.